Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another True You podcast with me, Paula Burns, Creative Confidence and Visibility Mentor. So, this is a place where we have open discussions to understand who we are in order that we can live our lives to the fullest. And I just love the conversations that I have with women on this podcast because everybody is living their version of their true life. And it's just such interesting conversations. The journeys, the ups, the downs, the challenges. But, there's just so much good news around living your true life. So I have got another amazing guest today, and I'm going to get straight into it and introduce her and make sure that I get her name right, pronounce that right. And it's a huge welcome. Welcome to Charlott Fagergard.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Paula. And that's spot on. It's probably the best pronunciation I've had.
Oh, do you know what? That makes me feel so good. People who know me know that I'm a stickler for names, so that's really, really important. So, Charlotte, great to have you on the podcast. Let's get into just sharing with everyone, what is it that you do?
So I actually run a freelance business. I've had businesses for many, many years, and this sort of happened after the recent sort of sale of a business that I had. So I have a few clients. I am fully booked at the moment, so that's a great place to be in. And I work for Robertson IP, which is intellectual property. I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about that later on, because that is where I sort of network and go out and create awareness for people to understand what intellectual property actually means and how you can protect your business. I love business and I love getting to know what people do in their business. That's my strengths, and that's why I sort of have a really great fit with the intellectual property world, because it is about how you can protect it and how to create the information around what you need, because people are very scared about this subject.
Yeah.
And often they just don't know where to start or what to do, and they think it's going to be very, very expensive, and it doesn't have to be.
So I'm going to ask like a really simple question, because I feel like, there might be people listening to this who might be in business or might be thinking of going into business. Why is it so important to think about intellectual property?
So if you were to step on somebody's toes and infringing on somebody else, you could receive a letter if you're starting out. So you say you bought your domain name and you're just starting out, you got your email, you think you might be covered with that, but you're not actually covered with just your domain name. You need to do a trademark application, or if it's designs, you need to protect your designs. If it's an innovation that you come up with, you might need a patent. So there's a few different routes that you can go down. But the most common one is to protect your business, is to do a trademark application. By having that, you have some kind of protection of your name or your logo, of the services or the products that you offer, which means that you have a sort of a forefront of what you need in your business to be able to protect that brand. So what a lot of people do is that they spend a lot of money on branding. They spend a lot of money on doing their website.
Yeah.
They might be starting out on social media, but they don't have the protection. So when a letter then arrives and you're infringing on somebody else, that's when it can start costing a lot of money. And that's when that's where you might end up having to rebrand, change your domain name, change your website, and also have to remove all of the posts that you've been posting on social media. So this is why it's important to think about it from the beginning, because that's not a place where anybody wants to be.
No.
And there's a simple searches that you can do yourself before you start out to see if a trademark is already used by somebody else. So there's lots of sort of hints and tips that you can do when you're just starting out, even if the budget is maybe not allowing you to trademark straight away. It's always good to sort of have a free consultation to see what you can think about in those sort of early stages, because that can be so important further down the line.
Yeah. Charlotte, I can tell you're so knowledgeable about this. And so, and I can see that it's probably in your bones as well. What is it that you love about it?
I love business. I love finding out about people's business. I am a connector, it's in my blood. And a lot of people sort of call me the Tinder of connections for business because I can usually feel when people, when you meet people in certain networks, you think, oh, so and so needs to speak to so and so. And I think that even happened when we were talking about your podcast, and it's the network that you have around. And I've been in business for a long, long time. And, it's creating those connections and collaborations that's really important to me. And when you're finding out about what people want to protect in their business, it literally just goes down to where do you make your money? And that is what you need to protect. So a lot of people come to me and go, oh, I do everything, and I have 300 services that I cover.
Like we all do, don't we?
Exactly. And it's really, so it's getting down to the nitty-gritty of what do you actually do on a daily basis and where do you monetize from and how can you protect that? So it's having conversations with business people, or people that want to start up their business and just creating the awareness of what they can and can't do. And that's a very sort of transparent process. And that's a free consultation. So, I just want to be out there and sharing the knowledge with people of what they can and can't do, because I've seen it far too often where people have left it until it's too late. And that's when it can start costing a lot of money. And you don't want that. There's enough sort of things going on when you're running your own business, and the journey can be quite hard. So if you can do anything to sort of make it easier, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlotte, I want to take you back now, because obviously you're in this space where you absolutely love what you're doing, intellectual property business. You alluded to the fact earlier that you have run various businesses, you've been in different environments. Now, I want to take you right back to your childhood, because I always feel that's a bit of a journey. And I love asking this question because it's interesting to hear about people's lives when they were younger. And there's always, more often than not, a thread that brings them through those stages of their life to where they are now living their true life. And so it's all about, where has this come from in terms of your personality, your likes, your passions, and all of these things. But I like starting from that place of what was it like for you as a child? What kind of child were you like? What was your childhood like? So tell us a little bit about that.
I had a fabulous childhood, to be honest with you. My nan was my real sort of support. And I grew up in Sweden. So it was a really lovely sort of outdoors. Outdoors was really important for me when I was growing up. But I did also have to grow up quite quickly because my brother was very, very poorly. And, I probably, at the age of 10, I was running the household and doing the shopping, doing the ironing, doing the cleaning. And my mum and dad were spending a lot of time in the hospital with my brother.
Right.
And that impacted probably what I wanted to do. I was very independent. At 14, I went to sign up to have my own flat. I was working as well as going to school, and I thought, you know what, I'm earning money, I can have my own place, great.
Yeah.
And then I realized I wasn't going to be able to save money to go traveling if I did that. So I decided to stay put, but because traveling was something that I wanted to do from a really, really early age. I think it was the curiosity about people. I love people. I love connecting with people. And that's what sort of wanted me to go further and see different cultures and different languages. I'm a complete foodie as well. So different foods in different countries and, just the history of places, that was something that drove me and what I wanted to do and what I ended up doing. So I left straight after my A-levels. I went to the US on my own, and it was where I started to grow as a person. It was just a really, really great experience.
Oh gosh! See, I can see all the connections there already. Even as a young person growing up, and all of those things about liking to connect, and what you've done throughout your life links back to that already. So, what were some of the first jobs that you did?
First one was actually in a florist. I was fed up I think I was 13 doing the paper runs, and I just thought that was the most boring thing ever. So I walked around the whole town, and they gave me a job. I just turned 14 over Christmas in a florist. And actually that was a fabulous insight, because I ended up then later on running my own restaurants. And one of the jobs I really loved to do was all the flower arrangements that I learned, when I was 14. So that was something that stayed with me for a long time. And even now, I still love doing flower arrangements.
I love it.
Then it was a petrol station where, showing my age now, obviously you could hire sort of video boxes and things like that. And then I was working in a perfumery as well as a supermarket. When I came back from the US, I was managing the supermarket. And that was interesting because a lot of the people had been there for 20 plus years. And when the lady said she wanted to put me in charge, I thought, because I was 19, and I thought, how are they going to listen to me? But none of them wanted the responsibility. And they actually were really kind to me. And that was a really lovely experience. There was a lot of, people who've worked there all their lives and wanted to stay there forever, but none of them wanted the responsibility, whilst I thrived on the responsibility and I loved it. So really great experiences, and also with really good people. So I learned, from my point of view at that time, I felt that people were just good. There weren't really any bad people in the world. And that's how I ended up starting when I started traveling. I just kind of see the best in people, and I still want to see the best in people, but the journey from that can take us, in different challenges. But I still always want to sort of feel that we can see the best in people and learn something from everyone that we meet.
And I absolutely feel like the majority of people are good. The majority, and it's like anything, we always get to hear about the minority, and then it becomes this huge thing that is like everyone is like that, so we hear the bad news. And this, for instance, it's so funny. Obviously, I live in Wales, and if people hear that the weather's really bad in Wales, they think everybody's like flooded. They hear about the flooding and they think, oh, everyone's flooded in Wales. And everyone is, everything is the same everywhere. And that's because the negative news travels so much more than the positive news.
And that's why I think it's important that we spread the love and do sort of connect people together that you think could fit well together. And especially, in business, because business can be really lonely. And I think when you're in business, it's really important to have your friends within the networks as well, because your family might not always understand why you do what you do. So I think it's important to sort of create those networks around you for business as well. That's something that I've learned.
Absolutely. So when did you actually get into business as such, and what are some of the businesses?
So I opened my first restaurant in 1998, I think, 97, 98. I did go to university in London, University of the Arts, and then I sort of did a few different jobs, and then I decided that it was time to open my own restaurant, which was something I always wanted to do. And it was a really, really lovely place to be. If you are from around that area, it was on Garrett Lane. It was absolutely a place that was buzzing at the time. It was like a really close neighborhood where people would just pop in on their own after work in the wine bar. I trained sommelier, so the wine bar was something that I was really interested in, and it was also a Michelin star restaurant, so it was a fabulous place to be, and we turned it around, and it was just like, I can't even say it was work. I mean, it was hard work. I'm not don't get me wrong, but it was like a massive big family as well. And when one thing that I really have thought about later on in life when we talk about getting a good workforce, because I worked a lot with different teams, and I think this might sort of resonate with someone. It would be that in those days in the hospitality, you tended to work every weekend. And what I did, I had 4 managers and obviously myself as well. And we had every third weekend off. And I think that was unheard of at the time. And I think that's created a real lovely team. And my staff turnover was almost zero, which was incredible. And, you know, for that far back in time, we hear about people burning out now, and, you know, people are really struggling, and it's long hours in hospitality. But creating a team that knew that they could have sort of those time away, and it really, really supported the workforce that we had. So yeah, that's something that I'm really proud of. And I didn't even think about it at the time. But I have thought about it later on, and it really made it.
Oh, amazing. So you have this fabulous restaurant, which I can tell you absolutely loved. It was a very special part of your life. And then what happened next?
We were meant to sort of expand, and we looked at some sites, and then there was 3 of us, and we decided that we'd wanted different things. So one of the involved people in the business, he wanted to move to the countryside and sort of have a restaurant with rooms. I wasn't ready to move from London, so I decided to resign, and I then went traveling for 2 years, which was incredible, on and off. And you know, I've always liked to travel, like I mentioned earlier. So that was my sort of time out, and I had lots of different sort of jobs, seeing different cultures, and just creating a network around the globe. And I loved it, that time of my life. And then it came up that actually we were going to open up a restaurant in Wales, and that happened 2006. So that's the reason why I moved here, and I was ready at that time. I kind of done the London life, and I was ready to move a little bit further out and do a new challenge. And that's what happened then, which was my joy, my life. You know, I gave up everything to come and open something in the middle of nowhere where I didn't know anyone, which was really interesting, because it was a lovely sort of affluent village in the middle of nowhere, and we managed to turn that around to a 500,000 turnover in a year, which was incredible. So really, really exciting times, and lots of support, not only from the locals but from further afield. So yeah,
you brought all of that experience that you had before to that space. And I love when you said about the timing was right and you were ready, because I feel like a lot of us have gone through those stages where change is really hard for us, because something that I've learned throughout life is that change is inevitable. Things will change. It is never ever going to stay the same, no matter how amazing it is. Like you being in that restaurant, the first restaurant, and having that amazing experience. We all know that that's going to change at some point, especially when there's other people involved, and life involves other people and outside influences and all of these things. So things will change. But then, you continue on that journey. It's all the things that you've learned from that. It takes you to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. And then you saying, I was ready. I was ready for this new step that I took then to come to Wales. And I've said that so many times, about like when people say to me, oh, I bet you wished you'd done that ages ago. And I say, well, no, I don't, because I wasn't ready.
I don't actually believe in regrets, because I think, like you said now, what the decision was at the time when you made that decision was the right decision for that moment.
Absolutely.
And you can't regret it, because you can't change it.
No, absolutely. Was there a time or times that you felt that you lost your way?
Absolutely. And I think if you speak to any one of us, it would be unusual if it wasn't. And it was after actually I left. We wanted different things with the restaurant that I had here in Wales. And the team sort of split up, and I then decided to resign as a director and move on. And that's the time when I felt, well, where do I go from here? I was a little bit older. I didn't really sort of want to go off and travel at the time. I just needed a change, and that took a little while to find. I did have a project in France at the time. We had a house in France, so I was managing that, and that was kind of my savior. But it was the strangest feeling going from seeing masses of people every day, having a big team, and then all of a sudden I'm in the middle of nowhere in France. I didn't speak French very well. And I had no internet. The phone didn't work. You know, it's a while ago. So yeah, it was completely isolated. But I did have an English neighbor, and I had a lovely little 90-year-old down the road who kept talking to me. I don't know what he said, but you know, it was his highlight, I think, my little walk around, and then he just stood talking to me. So this is, again, what you're talking about is change.
Yeah.
Change is important. And I think, you know, you build up resilience to change if you let it yourself go and just, you know, go with the flow until you're ready. So for a couple of years there, I had sort of I didn't really want to get into a serious career. And then things evolved, and I kind of found something that I really, really loved. And I went back to sort of my corporate role, which I hadn't done for a few years. So that was difficult and strange and involved a lot of traveling. So I loved that. And I did that for many years, but you know, it also had its run, and that's the second time when I lost my way. Because I don't have children, I used to be able to sort of go traveling. You know, they phone me on a Sunday and say, "Can you go to New York tomorrow morning?" And it became exhausting, and I didn't realize that I was, you know, close to burnout, but I was removing myself from everybody. I literally just worked and did nothing else. And there's a few signs that you can sort of see when you are feeling in that way. I know, you know, being burnt out and had worked too hard, that's a saying that a lot of, you know, people use these days. And that is, you know, you can be burnt out without having clinical depression or clinical burnout. It's very different things. But I read a book from Beverly Jones, who I think you've also interviewed, Made It Through the Rain. And I realized that I had all of the symptoms of, you know, clinical depression and complete burnout. And I thought, I need to do something about this. But the first step of that book was that I wasn't alone, because I thought everybody was feeling, and I thought that this was what I had to do for the rest of my life. I'd split up from a 25-year-long relationship, and I thought that if I didn't stay in this environment, how was I going to support myself? How was I going to, you know, how was I going to live? And I thought that was my destiny, and I felt totally drained from it. So I did hand in my notice, and I ended up setting up a big community. And obviously then we had lockdown and things like that, which was challenging. But the community side of me really took over, and being in lockdown, being able to connect with people like we are now via Zoom and various platforms, was an incredible time to sort of stay true to your network, reaching out to people further away. And I connected with so many people all over the globe, which was just incredible. So that was a really, really great time.
Lockdown did a lot for us. I mean, I must say, from a community point of view and from a reset point of view, lockdown did that for us. You know, so many people that I've spoken to, the reset and the building of communities has been so important. And also the, like, you know, just looking at your direction of life and understanding how flexible we can be with life, because I think that's what lockdown also taught us, is that things don't have to be a certain way. They can be fluid, they can change, they can move, and to suit you. And I think that's what, you know, a lot of us learned, that in a way we were being lied to, that you had to have this structure. You know, all of that time leading up, it was like, oh, there's no way you can work from home, you know, you must come into the office and you must do all of this, and this is how it works. And then all of a sudden there was this fluidity, and it was like, okay, we thought we couldn't do it. But yeah, it's sort of like, you know, and as you say, for you, it meant so much to come back to that community for you.
Definitely.
Yeah. When you do things that is more about how you feel and your conviction, and you understand that it's the way to go and to build your business, build your community, all of those things about you. Sometimes it can be quite scary because you believe in it, you believe in you and what you're doing, but the people around you don't quite get it. So how scary was it for you in that respect, when you were getting up and doing all the things that you do, which wasn't necessarily the same as what everybody else was doing maybe in your life? And did you have supportive people around you? I think we have all the voices in our heads as well that say to us, are we doing the right thing? Is it just me being silly with this or whatever? But you've also got like the external voices as well. So how was that for you?
I think the support came by building, and it took a lot of, meetings and different people. And, I used to sort of do a lot of live shows and things, a lot of podcasts, interviewing people, being visible. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people are really frightened of. And really it can be really scary. And I was in the beginning. I didn't just go out there and go, yes, I'm going to go live and this. But over time, I realized that people needed to hear some of the things. And like what you're doing now, people need to feel that support. They feel, we can learn from each other, we can help each other.
Yeah.
And for me, that was important. So that's what I sort of built over time. And I think, it took years. It wasn't a quick fix.
Yeah.
And I think people need to remember that. So you need to sort of make some changes in your life. So one of the things I did was downsize, and making sure that I could sort of support myself in a different way from what I'd done before. And that's what I mentioned earlier, was that sometimes family and friends will not understand that. And that's when you need your networking friends and your business colleagues to be able to get support in a different way. And for me, it was about consistency. And I think everything in business is about consistency, collaborations, and building your network. And by just being visible as well, and being out there and just being true to yourself, being authentic to yourself. Don't try and be somebody else. I think a lot of people have tried that when they first start out. They think they need to be everyone. And you don't. You just need to believe in what you do and stay true to yourself.
Yeah. And tapping into that inner voice and that inner instinct, and trusting that. I don't feel that we give ourselves enough credit to trust our inner voice and inner instinct. I have a very strong faith, so I pray and I take time to be still and all of those things. And you can definitely feel if something feels right or it doesn't feel right.
That's something I've had to learn, because I was always 100 miles an hour, and it's something that I've had to learn.
Yeah, I know. And we've all been through that stage, where, as you say, it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. I was the same. It's just go, 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 keep it going. It's up to me. I've got to get this done. But then, you do realize the importance of being still. So, it is so important. Love our conversation, Charlotte. I'm going to sort of like bring things to a close, but I've got some questions to ask you before we do. So these questions I ask everyone. It's sort of like quick fire questions, but you've got a little bit of time to elaborate as well. So the first question is, do you understand what makes you truly happy?
I do now, I think. And this year, I think I mentioned this when we saw each other again after having not seen each other for a while. And for me, it's about boundaries. And for the first time in my life, I've set some boundaries this year. And I have realized other things that can make me really happy. The importance for me of being outdoors. It's a non-negotiable. It has to happen. Otherwise, I will feel that I'm sort of sloping into a wobbly bit again. And that's when I sort of do my meditation. I've never been one to be able to sit completely still and meditate, but I've learned that you can do it in many different ways. And being outdoors, walking both on my own and with friends and family is absolutely a non-negotiable for me, because that makes me truly happy.
I love that. I love that. Understanding what that is again so key, isn't it? You know, and being able to ask that question to people, and I ask that question, you know, to a lot of my clients as well. Tell me what makes you happy, and that's an exercise in itself. That's such an exercise. A lot of people have forgotten. They
Yeah.
don't really, they haven't taken the time to stop and remember the things that make them happen. So yeah, it's lovely for you to say that you're at that place that you know what makes you happy. The next question is, how are you get up now? This is, we've sort of touched on this already, but how are you with getting still to feel emotion and to hear that inner voice?
So for me, it's I have different treatments that I help with. So I do a lot of reflexology. I do go to people, you know, massage. Thai massage is a thing that I love as well. I've done hypnotherapy. I've done timeline therapy. You know, it's taken time sometimes to really prioritize you, and I know that's not always easy. But I have used those techniques to help me to be able to be still, especially with hypnotherapy. Something, if I can't sleep, I will put on my sort of hypnotherapy recording, and
Yeah,
that will just straight away put me back to sleep.
yeah,
And little things like that. I think people sometimes think it's a bit woo-woo and they don't really understand how it works, but you've got to find what's right for you. And I
absolutely.
think we all need some techniques like that to be able to help us sometimes to find the stillness, because
Mm.
you know life throws its challenges at us all the
Oh,
time. So
100
if we
miles an
don't
hour.
have a little toolbox, then
Yes.
we don't know what to do with ourselves, and that's when
No,
things can go wrong.
absolutely. Absolutely. Again, you've touched on this earlier. Have you found your tribe?
Yes, definitely. And I always talk about radiators and drain pipes.
Mm,
And radiators are the ones that keep you really lovely and warm. And, you know, surround yourself with those radiators around you, because they are the ones that are going to make you thrive.
yeah,
Um, there's a few drain pipes out there. If you feel that somebody, you know, is draining every time, you know, you
yeah.
see that person or anything, you don't need to fall out with people. You just gently need to maybe remove yourself, and because it's you got to do what's really right for you. And I found that sometimes, you know, there's just people in your life that will drain you and doesn't make you feel good.
Mm,
And you know, relationships is a two way, and we're all there for our, you know, for each other, both for friends, family, and partners. And I think that is something that I really strongly believe, that you really need to have that fantastic sort of two-way conversations
yes,
and
yeah.
feeling like you feel really warm when you're with someone. And yeah, I'm so lucky, because I definitely found that. And there's so many people in my life now that I, you know, they just it's both networking friends and
Yeah,
family, but there's so many people out there that I know that I can reach out to, and that really truly makes me just
yeah.
I'm so lucky and I feel so grateful.
So, so important. So important. I love it. Finally, do you love yourself unconditionally?
Most of the time. Not always, perhaps, but you know, we all criticize ourselves. We're so terrible at criticizing ourselves, aren't we?
Mm, we are.
But I'm learning to, and I really this year has been a real eye opener on so many different levels, and I'm learning to be kind to myself, and you know, like just liking where you are at that time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's special to me, because I don't really think I've taken time to do that before, and I am taking time to do that, and I think it's important to take time to do that.
And I say this all the time. It's like when I ask this question about loving yourself unconditionally, it's loving yourself, understanding that you are a work in progress. So it doesn't mean that you think that you're perfect, because none of us are perfect, but you understand the things about you. You love the way you think. You love the way you analyze things, the way you make decisions. You love the people in your life. You know, you've talked about so many positive things, Charlotte, that you know, all of those things. When you think about it, you are amazing. You are to be loved, and especially if we can love ourselves first. I mean, there was a saying that I think I've read. It's It says, maybe we should love ourselves so deeply that we show other people how to love us. And
Yeah,
I
I
think,
like that.
yeah, and it's so true. We always, there's so many times we can put ourselves last, and then we're putting that message out there for other people. If people see the way that we treat ourselves, they know they have to step up to that, level, because we are important, and it is important because at the end of the day, if something happens to us, we can't do the things and do have the purpose that we have in life. We have to start with ourselves first and then give to others. So yeah.
There's something you mentioned about purpose, because I used to think that my purpose was, I love working with other people. And
Mm,
when that changed a little bit, I thought, well, what's my purpose? And then I realized purpose can be in so many different ways.
yeah,
And I've learned that my purpose doesn't mean that I have to burn myself out and
no,
bend over backwards for everybody else to be pleasing others, but it can be to support others, but also in that process support myself. And
exactly.
that's a lesson that I've learned sort of the hard way, I think, and I
Yeah,
think many of us have.
yeah, absolutely. I call it filling yourself up, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
No,
It just makes sense.
yeah.
We're there trying to squeeze every last bit out of ourselves and thinking, well, there's nothing left to give. So I need to sort of like fill it back up again. So yeah, that is so true. Charlotte, it has been amazing chatting to you today. Thank you so much for being on my podcast and sharing your story and sharing your experiences.
Thank you for having me. I'm really grateful to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And to everyone who is listening, I hope you've been touched. I hope you've been inspired. And you are thinking of ways of how you can live your true life. I will be back again very soon with another special guest. But in the meantime, keep being the true you. Bye, everyone.